The morning sun rose gently over Umuahia, casting golden rays across the bustling market. Traders spread their goods, women shouted prices, and the air was filled with the smell of roasted plantain and fresh palm oil. In the heart of this chaos stood Okorie, the man everyone called Odogwefi, the great cow seller. Okorie's tale was unlike any other, where others managed 2 or 3 cows. He had dozens. His slaughterhouse was never empty. His workers were always busy. And people said his cows came from the far north. On market days, the sound of mowing filled the air as buyers from Aba, Ohofia, and even Owerri came to bargain. Children in the village pointed to his mansion on the hill and whispered, "One day I will be like Okorie." Okorie wore flowing abada with red coral beads around his neck. His laughter was loud, his generosity endless. He donated cows to churches during harvest, slaughtered bulls during community festivals, and gave money to widows. To everyone, he was a blessing to the land. But what no one knew was that behind the cows, behind the wealth, behind the generous smile, Okorie hid a secret. Travelers often spoke in hushed tones about the lonely road that curved past the cattle market at night. The path stretched long and quiet, flanked by tall grasses and abandoned huts. Some said they heard strange cries there, others swore they saw shadows moving even when no wind blew. Yet, in a land where poverty was real and time was scarce, men ignored the warnings. Traders returning from Aba, students coming home from school, or workers heading back from night shifts often braved those routes. Elders in Umuahia shook their heads. "Mwam," they would say, "never walk that road at night. Evil lurks where silence is too heavy." But people laughed it off. Is it not just cows they are keeping there? They argued, Okorie's slaughterhouse is there. What danger can there be? If only they knew. It began with Obinna, a bright student from Abia State University. He was on his way home for the weekend, carrying a small bag and a smile that lit his face. He had promised his mother roasted groundnuts from Aba, and he walked quietly so he could arrive before nightfall. But the bus broke down on the road, and by the time Obinna reached Umuahia, darkness had already fallen. He hesitated for a moment at the edge of the cattle market road, clutching his bag tightly. "It's just a shortcut," he told himself. "I will be home soon." That was the last time anyone saw him alive. Days turned into weeks. His parents searched everywhere. Posters with his picture were posted on walls in Aba and Umuahia. Some whispered that he must have joined bad friends. Others said it was the work of kidnappers. But among the elders, an old man muttered, "The cows are not the only things being slaughtered there." By day, Okorie was the celebrated cow seller. He laughed with customers and offered discounts to church elders. He was a man of the people. But by night, his true face emerged. Hidden behind the slaughterhouse was a secret room. The walls were thick, the floor stained with blood, and the smell, though masked by cow heat, was not of cows alone. Okorie was not only selling cow meat, he was part of a deadly network that supplied human body parts to ritualists and power-hungry men. Across Abia and beyond, politicians came to him in black jeeps, their faces hidden in the shadows. Herbalists whispered with him, exchanging cowries and charms. He provided them with what they wanted: hearts, livers, limbs, all carefully packed under cow meat to avoid suspicion. His slaughterhouse was his cover, his cows the perfect disguise. Nobody questioned the blood, the cries, the strange movement of goose at midnight. Okorie smiled at the world in the morning, but at night he became the merchant of death. As the years passed, Okorie's wealth grew like the flood in rainy season. He built mansions in Umuahia, Aba, and Ozo Akole. His children schooled abroad, sending back pictures of snow and foreign streets. At village meetings, he donated the most money. During church harvest, his cow was always the fattest. People said, Ezioku, God has blessed this man. But not everyone believed. Some old women whispered in corners, how can one man rise so quickly from nothing? A retired teacher recalled how Okorie once borrowed money for a single cow and failed to pay back. Yet, within a year, he had dozens. This wealth smells, he muttered. But each time suspicion grew, Okorie's generosity silenced it. He would donate a bag of rice here, sponsor a youth there, and the people would praise him louder. No one dared imagine the truth, that their beloved cow seller was treading in the flesh and blood of their missing children. Chima was a poor shoemaker who lived near the cattle market. His workshop was a small wooden shed by the roadside, where he mended slippers and polished shoes for travelers. Life had not been kind to him, but his sharp eyes and restless spirit made him observant. For weeks, he had noticed strange things around Okorie's slaughterhouse. At night, when most traders had gone home, he still saw Okorie's boys moving about with wheelbarrows. The loads they carried were always covered with cow heads. Yet, the shapes were sometimes too human. One night, Chima stayed behind at his workshop, pretending to sleep at his bench. Around midnight, he had muffled cries, weak and desperate cries. His heart pounded. Carefully, he peered out. Two of Okorie's men were dragging a struggling figure into the slaughterhouse. The next morning, there was no cow slaughtered, yet blood flowed into the drainage as if many animals had been killed. Chima's skin crawled. Something was wrong. Fear wrestled with curiosity in Chima's chest. If he spoke without proof, no one would believe him. Okorie was too powerful and respected, but his conscience would not let him rest. One fateful night, he decided to follow them. He tucked his small button phone in his pocket, the type with a shaky camera, but enough to capture evidence. From a safe distance, he trailed Okorie's men as they wheeled a cart into the back of the slaughterhouse. He crept behind a pile of hay and held his breath. When the men lifted the head, his eyes widened. Beneath it was not cow meat, but the mutilated remains of a young man. His stomach churned. He wanted to scream, to run, but he forced himself to stay quiet. He clicked his phone camera twice, capturing the gruesome truth. That night, Chima could not sleep. He tossed on his mat, sweat soaking his body. He knew he was holding a deadly secret. If Okorie discovered him, he would vanish like the others. Chima's suspicions were confirmed days later around 2 a.m. He saw a convoy of black jeeps arrive quietly at the slaughterhouse. Men in suits stepped out, their faces hidden in caps. They greeted Okorie like an old partner, shaking his hand firmly. Bundles wrapped in black nylon were loaded into the jeeps, carefully placed under coolers of cow meat. Chima's heart broke as he realized the scale of it. These were not ordinary customers. They were wealthy men, politicians and businessmen from across Abia and neighboring states. They were buying human parts like market goods, believing they would gain power, riches and protection. Okorie was not just a cow seller. He was the link between greed and death, the bridge between ordinary lives and ritualistic darkness. Chima clenched his fist. He knew now that this was bigger than he imagined. The next Sunday, Okorie arrived at church in his white agbada, leading a fat cow for harvest Thanksgiving. The priest prayed for him, calling him a pillar of the community. The congregation clapped, children danced, and his name echoed in praises. Chima sat at the back, his heart burning. He wanted to stand up and shout the truth, but his voice caught in his throat. Who would believe him? The same people clapping for Okorie would call him a liar, maybe even accuse him of jealousy. The illusion of Okorie's goodness was strong, woven tightly by wealth and influence. The man who killed that night was worshipped at dawn. That night, Chima made a silent vow. He would not keep quiet. If no one else would expose him, he would find a way to do it alone, even if it cost him his life. Across Abia State, families were grieving silently. A mother wept daily at the loss of her daughter, who disappeared on her way back from her tailoring shop. In Umuahia, a young trader never returned after delivering palm oil to the city. In Umuahia, Obinna's parents still searched the roads, holding on to faint hope. Posters of missing people filled the walls of bus stations. Each face told a story, each tear a wound, yet no answers came. At night, their spirits seemed to cry in the wind, calling for justice. The community grew restless, whispers spreading like fire. Where are our children going? Why do they vanish near the cattle market? But still, no one dared to connect the dots to Okorie. He was too dangerous, too powerful, too untouchable. Until Chima's courage would one day force the truth into the open. Chima wrestled with fear for many days. The images on his phone haunted him. Blood, lifeless eyes, human remains, packed like slaughtered cows. But his conscience would not let him rest. If he kept silent, more innocent people would vanish. One evening, he gathered courage and went to the police headquarters in Umuahia. The officers were skeptical at first. "Do you know who you are accusing?" One inspector barked. "Okorie is a respected man." But when Chima nervously showed them the pictures and videos on his phone, the room grew silent. The evidence was undeniable. The inspector leaned back in his chair, his face pale. "This is bigger than we thought," he muttered. A sting operation was planned. The police would move carefully. Okorie had friends in high places, and one wrong step could ruin everything. But the truth could not remain hidden forever. The night of the raid was heavy with silence. A convoy of police trucks rode quietly toward the cattle market. Their headlights dimmed. Chima sat at the back of one truck, his hands trembling. When they stormed the slaughterhouse, Okorie's men were caught off guard. Some tried to flee, but were quickly subdued. The police kicked open the doors to the hidden room, and what they found froze the blood in their veins. Human remains, freshly butchered, some hidden under cow carcass, others packed in coolers ready for transport. Blood soaked the floor, and the stench was unbearable. Okorie himself was dragged out in handcuffs. He shouted, "You don't know who I am. I am a man of the people," but no one listened. The community gathered outside, watching in shock as their beloved cow seller was exposed for who he truly was. Mothers wailed and fathers cursed. Children ran into their homes in fear. The illusion had shattered. The news spread like wildfire across Abia State, from Aba to Umuahia, from Umuahia to Uzuakoli. The name Okorie became a curse. Newspapers carried the story. Famous cow seller exposed as human parts dealer. His mansion were sealed by the government. The grand slaughterhouse that had stood as a symbol of his wealth was demolished in public. Its walls torn down with bulldozers as people shared bitterly. His children abroad were disgraced. They returned home in shame, unable to defend the blood-soaked foundation of their father's wealth. The same community that once celebrated him now spat on the ground when his name was mentioned. Wealth built on blood had crumbled overnight. In the aftermath, the people of Umuahia were left with heavy hearts. How had they been so blind? How had they allowed wealth to silence suspicion? Elders gathered under the village tree, shaking their heads in sorrow. "We danced with him. We ate his meat. We blessed his cows." One said bitterly, Meanwhile, our children's blood was on his hands. Women wept openly, remembering the faces of missing loved ones. Youths clenched their fists, angry at themselves for ever envying his riches. The church that once praised him now denounced him. Okorie's downfall was not just his own. It was a mirror reflecting the community's failure to question the source of sudden wealth. The story of Okorie, the cow seller, became a cautionary tale across Abia State. Parents warned their children, do not travel at night. Evil hides in the dark. Travelers avoided lonely roads, especially near the cattle market. The elders repeated again and again, not all that glitters is gold. Not every wealthy man is blessed. Sometimes generosity is a mask to cover evil. Chema, the poor shoemaker who risked his life to expose the truth, became a hero. Though still poor, his name was honored. People said, it was not money that saved us, it was courage. And so, the memory of Okorie lived on, not as a man of wealth, but as a warning. When wealth rises too quickly, ask questions. When night roads call, beware. Evil may hide in the plain sight, but truth always comes in the end.